What's up, everyone? We are back at WITI. We are now with Mica Syjuco. Hello.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. So, oh my goodness. Okay, so we got to dive into Avanade.
Sure.
And this is a subsidiary of Accenture.
Yes.
And Microsoft, kind of partnered together on Avanade.
Yes.
And so you are focused on software deployment and delivery.
Yes.
And so you've been doing this 15 years.
Close to, yes.
Close to 15 years of software delivery, and this is like for banks and for nonprofits and for all different types of agencies that really like your skill set of delivery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and okay, your background's cool too. You're Chinese Filipino, and you grew up there your whole life.
In the Philippines, yes.
In the Philippines your whole life, and then. Maybe start with, tell us like about how that was like, and then when did you like pick up coding and like management and deployment and stuff like that?
It's an interesting story, Alan. I actually never thought I'd be involved in any sort of technology, right? Because growing up, my friends would ask me, teachers even, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, anything that doesn't have to do with technology, because I hated it. I mean, I wasn't very exposed to it. Neither of my parents were very tech savvy, and I wanted to be a lawyer or a writer, you know, something in that vein. But later on, when the IT boom was happening, there was almost a feel of, okay, what is this about? And then my interest and my curiosity took over. And I was actually taking up accountancy initially. No offense to accountants, I love accountants, but I mean, it just wasn't for me. So I said, okay, let's shift over to IT. And I'm glad I made that shift. It wasn't a natural fit at first, but I worked on it. So I felt that the continuous learning, my drive to continuously learn and evolve worked well for me in this particular field.
Yeah.
And I graduated from IT in the Philippines, summa cum laude, and I thought, hey, you know, I actually really, really love this. I grew to love it. I didn't initially love it and thought this was what I wanted to do from the beginning. It's something I grew to love.
So this is a similar story to, I think, myself and a couple other people that I know, actually a decent amount of people, is that the parents might not have really had a background in the field that we were interested in, and then there was this, I don't know, societal pressure to like do like doctor, lawyer, kind of those things, and then just somehow it ended up being that like we figured something out that we really like to do, and then we ended up going with that. And so, okay, so now when you graduated IT, and then you decided to move to the United States after working for a little while?
Yeah,
or?
I worked in the Philippines for a while for Accenture, which is you know, one of the top software consultancy companies in the world. I worked with a variety of clients, most of which I cannot name due to NDAs. then I eventually started working with Avanade, which is the subsidiary of Accenture, and focused more on Microsoft technologies, which was actually a good fit. In the beginning of my career with Accenture, the focus is more on non-Microsoft technologies. Siebel actually became a Siebel certified consultant, but I was more inclined towards Microsoft because when I was studying in school, the technologies we really honed in on were Microsoft leaning, right? Like, so SQL, et cetera. So when I shifted to Avanade, it was a bit of a natural thing, I'll say. I enjoyed it. So my focus has been on Microsoft technologies, and now the products I work with use Microsoft technologies primarily.
So as a like software deployment expert, as well as like a Scrum trainer and these types of things, actually the first female.
Well, either the first or one of the first professional Scrum developer.net professional Scrum trainers with Scrum.org. I know that's a mouthful, but yes. So
that's important. You're part of the see it, be it. You know, other young women get to look up to you and say, I can do that too. So, okay, now what does that look like and feel like when you're working with these teams? What is Scrum to, what is software deployment? What does that look like?
Well, you know, Scrum is really interesting because it's one of the Agile methods, right? When you hear Agile, it's really an umbrella term talking about a disciplined approach in developing and managing software. And as long as it's team-based, iterative, collaborative, it's Agile. So it's an umbrella term. You have Kanban, you have Scrum, you have XP, you have a number of methods and frameworks under Agile. And Scrum, the one I honed in on, is very interesting because
So Agile itself is
It's more of like an umbrella term that
for software deployment.
no, for software, it's a delivery approach that promotes disciplined management and development. Okay, which is team-based, iterative, and collaborative.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So because
but like, what else is there besides team-based, iterative,
well,
and
you'd be
collaborative?
surprised because I mean, I don't know how young you are, but maybe for your generation, that's already the norm.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. What was it before then?
Before waterfall, right? So the Agile Manifesto was actually they came up. The thought leaders in the Agile space came out with the Agile Manifesto in 2001, so close to 20 years ago. And before that, most software delivery and development was waterfall. So you have stage gates, very defined silos. Oh, plan, analyze, design, build, test, deploy, right? So you can't build software until you're done planning. You can't. Then you go to analyze. You analyze the requirements. Then you design it. Then that's when you build it. That's when you test it. When you deploy. So it would take like the normal development cycle was around a year, maybe 6 months to a year, maybe more. So not like now, wherein you have like 2 weeks, 1 month. I mean, 1 month, 1 month, 2 weeks to 1 month in terms of the duration to deploy software, right? Where everything is done within that 2 weeks, within that 1 month, right? And that's the norm that I think this generation is probably more accustomed to, right?
Yeah.
But before that, it was very defined.
Because you want to know if it's going to work or not.
Exactly, yeah. and it seems like common sense now, but 20 years ago, it wasn't. And I think that's the thing. The industry leaders, the thought leaders really came together and said, the way we're doing things isn't working. So what do we want? What do we want to do? And that's why they came up with the Agile Manifesto, which really says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Processes and tools are important, but individuals and interactions are more valuable, right? So working software over comprehensive documentation. Because during the time of waterfall, there were lots of documents, design documents, requirements documents that went through several reviews and sign-offs and whatever. And sometimes, after a certain period of time, that's all you have. You have great documentation on requirements and design and whatever, but you don't have working software. So say, hey, we want to put a premium on working software over comprehensive documentation, right? And then there's also, over contract negotiation, we want to put a premium on customer collaboration. Because back then, since it was so siloed and it was just all about documentation again, we have to make sure the contract is airtight. So they put a premium on that versus collaborating with the customers and really establishing that relationship. And the final tenet, I'd say, in the Agile Manifesto would be responding to change versus following a plan, right? Because back then, during the days of waterfall,
oh my gosh, things change so fast,
exactly,
and you got to pivot.
But success was measured back then by how well did you stick to the plan? How compliant are you to the plan? Which, right? I mean,
that'll line you up for failure then. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's common sense to us now, but back then. No.
Interesting, because back then maybe change was more perceived as the market's moving, we don't know how it's moving, stick to the plan, we don't know what's going to happen. But now it's like the market's moving, what's happening in the market, let's see if we can change what we're building to make it applicable to the market.
So you're responding to change over following the plan. I mean, there's still planning, of course, in Scrum and in Agile. You plan, you have, but just enough, in-time planning, just-in-time planning, and that works much better, because imagine like back then, and I know, I'm sorry if you can edit this if this is going a little bit into too much detail.
No, it's good. It's great to learn about what software engineering used to be like compared to now.
Yeah. I mean, let's say if you had a month to plan, a month to analyze, a month to design. I mean, that's just a very, basic example for simplicity. So at 3 months, all you had, again, were the requirements and design documents. You had no software. And but back then, to them, sometimes they viewed it as successful. We have great design documents. They're either signed off, they look good, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but where's the real value, right? Your client gets its value from software that it actually uses, and it's out in the market getting feedback continuously. So, I mean, it's all common sense now, and I'm glad that this is the norm. And I don't want to be like a waterfall basher. I think waterfall in some scenarios still has merit. Has merit, right? But it's just that in today's world, Agile just makes sense.
Yeah. So now we have Agile, and it's able to be more iterative and collaborative, and adapt to different market movements faster. And then we have, so Scrums within Agile. And so,
Yes, it's one of the frameworks.
okay, so teach us about that.
Yeah, and so Scrum is a framework in which people can solve complex adaptive problems while creatively and productively delivering value to clients, right? So it's not just for software, I'll say, although the focus has been on software, but you can use Scrum for non-software activities, even for your daily life, right? So, Scrum is actually relatively simple. It has a certain set of roles, events, and artifacts that you just need to be aware of. But at the same time, I kind of liken that to chess. Like chess, the rules are simple, right? I mean, this piece can move, what are the certain movements that certain pieces can make. But to strategize to win a chess, this is a different story. So Scrum, while simple to understand, it can be difficult to master. So for Scrum, we have 3 roles: the product owner, the Scrum Master, the development team. Now, back then those terms were kind of, what's that? But now I think, again, you probably hear that so often now, right? Scrum Master, product owner, development team. And then, and then you have a sprint, right? Which you say, okay, you have your iteration, right? If you have a 2-week sprint, anything less than 30 days, really, 30 days or less. So, Scrum is pretty simple, right? It has roles, artifacts, events, but then I liken that to chess, which has rules that are quite simple. But in order to win, the strategy, the execution, it's really different. Same with Scrum, you have simple things to remember. It's a simple framework to understand, but to master it is really quite difficult. So we have the 3 roles: the product owner, Scrum Master, and your development team, right? So your product owner is responsible for the what. What is the vision? What is the goal for the sprint? How do I maximize the value in the product? That's really for the product owner. Then we have development team, which is responsible for the how. Like, how do we execute the vision of the product owner? How do we develop that? Then we have our Scrum Master, which is who is responsible for Scrum. Like, is this team really executing Scrum properly, following the rules, making sure the events are actually taking place every sprint? So that's your Scrum Master.
What does Scrum stand for?
It's not actually any sort of acronym. It's, you know how in rugby there's like a scrum? It came from that, like, how scrums are quick and you talk about what you want to do, right? And then you execute it. It's a scrum.
Break off and do it, yeah.
Yeah, and it got its inspiration from that.
From rugby, okay, cool.
Yeah, and then, so we have a sprint, which is like your entire duration of your development for that period. 30 days or less, so we can have a 1-week sprint, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever works for your team, depending on a number of factors. And so when you talk about that, you say, I'll say probably the most common is 2 weeks in practice. So say a 2-week sprint, so in that 2 weeks, again, unlike waterfall before, where in that 2 weeks, I don't know, maybe you have one design document done, you have working software by the end of 2 weeks. And you have a number of events that you have to do. So you have your sprint planning, you sit down together, the development team, the Scrum team actually together, talks through, okay, the product owner's goal, like, this is my sprint goal. For this sprint, this is what I want to happen, right? This is the result that I want to achieve. And then as part of that goal, the team then works together in understanding what are the items in the product backlog or the product backlog items that can help us realize that goal of our product owner. Let's collaborate. And then there's negotiation between the product owner and development team. Okay, is this doable in 2 weeks? Not really. Maybe we can swap it out for something else that will still align with the sprint goal. Maybe we can break it down to smaller chunks of work and just commit to the smaller chunk of work, etc. So that you plan. In short, you plan for what you want to deliver in that 2 weeks, right? And after you're done planning, then you have your daily scrums, which used to be called stand-ups, but they're now called daily scrums, where for time box it's 15 minutes, no more. The team every day talks.
Time box?
Time box is like maximum duration for something. So say if I time box this conversation to 15 minutes, that's your limit. Right, time box, yeah. So time boxing is a big thing in Scrum. So everything actually, in terms of the events, like the sprint, is really built around the concept of a time box. So instead of you looking at the work and saying, okay, I'm going to get this done in 5 months in total, you're thinking more of, okay, within the time box of, let's say, is it 2 weeks, is it 4 weeks, what item or items of value can I really deliver to the client? It's focusing on that because you have shorter feedback loops to inspect and adapt, right? responding to change, getting things to market faster. So, sorry. So did you want me to go through Scrum a little bit more, or is that a little already?
That's pretty good. I know there's a lot more, but the like to go from waterfalling to all this Scrum like super fast action, and also to like know how to time box things, to know how to dedicate like a project visionary versus the developers, like how those things go hand in hand. That is all very interesting. Is there a certain like secret sauce that different companies have that they use with Scrum, the Agile?
I mean, part of the problem is people think that, or used to think, I think in some cases it's still the thought that Agile or Scrum equals silver bullet or magic bullet, right? If there are dysfunctions in the organization, it will surface those sooner. It won't, and that's how we can help, I suppose, fix them earlier because they're surfacing them earlier. The secret sauce is the culture. It's really the people, I say, and that's one of the reasons I really also gravitated towards Scrum because it respects people more than process, right? I mean, the process is there to guide, but it's so lightweight that it's really on the people to establish that culture of transparency, inspection, and adaptation, have that collaboration and continuous learning. And that's why some organizations have such a hard time, I'll say, adopting more agile ways of working. It's because the culture and the mind frame change just isn't there, right? As I said, the rules are easy, right? It's very simple, really, but because if the people are not cooperating, are not on board, are not along for the journey, then it's just not going to work. So the secret sauce, I'd say, is as corny as it may sound, or as cliche, I'd say, it's really the people.
It's the people working together to build out what you set out to do. Now, what about as you've implemented this into telecommunications and banking, what does that look like?
I will say that for majority of the telecommunications work I did, that was more in the earlier part of my career when it was more waterfall. So I don't know, I'm not exactly sure. Is it more, how do you?
Interesting, relatable examples for people to understand how maybe engineering processes for software deployment ended up giving us telecommunications, ended up giving us some banking infrastructure, stuff like that.
Ooh, sorry.
Whatever you're allowed to say. Yeah. Which is nothing.
I might have to think about that. So,
yeah.
Especially if it's on video, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, hey, we caught you on tape saying these things." Yeah. So, I mean, I guess without being very specific about the industry, could you rephrase that again? What exactly did you want me to talk about or to share?
Maybe relatable examples of the software deployment.
Okay, how relatable? So let's say if you're working on a customer relationship management system, right? And you have the account section of your customer relationship management system. Then you focus on that and say, okay, maybe my sprint goal is to improve the account services experience for my customers. That's your sprint goal. And then you get your product backlog items that will meet that sprint goal. How do you improve their experience right around account services for your customer relationship management system? And then you take on the PBIs or the product backlog items for that, develop it, right? And maybe it could mean redesigning the accounts page to remove irrelevant fields and then to make certain fields mandatory, let's say, or required. And then you address those, and at the end of your sprint, you show that to your customers. And hey, this will improve your accounts and services experience. We improve the accounts page, to remove the redundant fields, irrelevant fields. So now it's just a few fields that are really needed. And then also we're preventing users from saving the form incorrectly. So we made some fields that should be mandatory. So and you demonstrate that, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but at the same time there is incremental value, right? So
Definitely.
little ones, and you just keep building on that until at the end of 6 months, you see, wow, in a span of 6 months, in a number, through several sprints that were 2 weeks long, little chunks of value, but by the end of 6 months, wow. Versus, again, if you were doing waterfall, by the end of 6 months, maybe you're just starting your build phase, and you're just starting to build.
There's something that about the description of the way that the data is made readable by us, the way that we read the data and interpret it and analyze it. So if there are ways to deploy software and that make it easier for us to read and interpret, analyze the data, then I think that enables us to better achieve the goals that we are setting with the customer. So with the customer relationship management tool that you just described with the accounts fields, like that makes a lot of sense. That's a good one. Is there another one on the top of your head that might make sense like that?
That may be easy to share. Sorry, I'm trying to think of what. Let's say an app for a major retailer, right? Which I actually was a user myself, and they needed to improve the overall experience, the mobile experience, right? There was too many areas, and overall we wanted to increase the value of that application period. It's an existing application. It's not giving the value that you want, because supposedly it's supposed to entice your customers to shop more, right? Because it makes things easier. There's a better interface, etc. But that particular application was not meeting the needs because it was unreliable, kept crashing, kept restarting, etc. So again, maybe in that example, what is the sprint goal? So to improve the reliability of the mobile application. And then how do you do that? Then you pick the product backlog items that will address that, right? So whatever remediation you need to do in order to address that, you pick those PBIs, then you go through the sprint, you develop, you deploy, and by the end of, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you can show your client a more reliable, more stable mobile app that maybe didn't add features necessarily, right? But you did improve the reliability of that mobile app. And now, okay,
yes. Yes, that's to be able to find the points within the experience designed for the customers that are using the product and make it more reliable for them to use and make it more effective for them to use. That process, no matter what, service industry, retail industry, is just time. Time's the most valuable thing we have, and if you can save people time in these processes, heck yes. Okay, so maybe we now ask you about the importance of uplifting women into technology roles. Tell us about that.
Wow, I think it's extremely important, especially at this day and age, right? Everything is about technology pretty much, and it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep evolving in that direction. And it's surprising to me, really, just the fact that we still don't have as many women in leadership roles, or even women just in the practitioners area of technology. So I think it's important as women, we continue to inspire each other. We share our experiences, we share our struggles, we share our wins. And I think that's one of the things that Women in Technology International really excels in. I mean, this is my first year actually participating in any capacity, and I when Peggy Kilburn reached out to me and said, hey, we're interested in getting you to talk and be part of this Women in Technology Summit this year. I really just jumped at the opportunity because I wanted to be able to talk to the women and share with them, hey, from my personal experience, I also underestimated myself. I thought, oh, I'm not technical enough. I didn't, there were so many doubts, and that's one thing that we women, unfortunately, we need to get better at, because we're very good at underestimating our strengths. And so I think that coming together and uplifting each other is a great way for us to remind each other of our strengths, and if seeing somebody succeed at it, right, serves as an inspiration, as an example, and as really as an indicator of, yes, it is possible. And focusing on the possible, especially in the realm of technology, is something that women are good at and should continue to work together so that it can become a bigger reality for more of us. Sorry, I don't know if
I love that answer, yes. It's been so long that we haven't had a avid congregation of especially women and males that care about bringing together women and
allies,
uplifting
so to
women,
speak,
the
right?
allies in the movement, and I think now more than ever, the feminine energy is very much needed for the planet, and I think we're there, we're growing it, and it's going to be some cool dance that happens in the future. I'm really excited for it. Okay, let's ask you this question because did you spend about 25 years in the Philippines? Was that about ish?
No, well, let me think, actually. I'm going to reveal my age if I say something, but yeah, let's make it ish. Yeah.
Ish. So,
Okay.
that's a good chunk of human life to spend in another place in the world. So my question then is, how do we balance the we are one mentality with the geopolitical leadership?
Oh, that is a hard question. I don't know if I have a really good answer for that. I mean, there will be nuances and differences based on geography, right? I mean, cultural things such as, us Filipinos or maybe even Asians in general, we tend to be more timid, less aggressive in terms of pursuing things. It's just very cultural, and I think we are evolving and that we are becoming more empowered to take opportunities and make opportunities for ourselves. But those kinds of differences, I can see it. But if we're talking about geopolitical leadership, are we talking about, our, presidents and government, or are we more in the direction of leadership in, well, you use geopolitical, so, sorry, I don't know if there's a good answer to that.
It's a very difficult question that we've been asking for a while, and it's that's kind of one of the themes of our show, is to ask very difficult questions.
And that's fine, and I like difficult questions, but I might not have the answers, but...
And that's also okay for people to just be like, you know what, I don't know, here's something that I'm thinking about that right now.
Peace out. No. But I mean, well, I think it's significant in support, right? Support for the technology sector by the government. That is important. I don't know if I'm necessarily, I don't want to be, and I'm not pinning it on any administration in particular, but I'm just saying, in general, I don't know, or I can't really say if I feel that the support of the government has been very strong for the industry sector, right? And that plays a part, right? So how much funds are getting allocated to actually building out the youth, like educating them from when they're young, so that it's not just bam, welcome to the world. I'll say that we are, we have a lot of great talent in Asia and the Philippines. I mean, and I'm not saying that because it's something I should be saying. I mean that we have some great talent there. But
every place in the world has great talent.
Absolutely. But I think that there's just different levels of opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Depending on where you are. And I think that right now, let's say, opportunities that I have here versus in other parts of the world, well, I am taking advantage of them in that and they're because they're here, but they're not necessarily always present, right, in other parts of the world. And I think that's why people still want to go and try to find opportunities for themselves, which they might not find in wherever they are. I don't know if I just rambled there.
No, the opportunity is so crucial across the planet. That's the best way for people to actualize, is to have as much opportunity as possible for them to play with and interact with, and then figure out what really resonates with them and bring that to the world. When there's malnutrition and no electricity and these other kinds of issues, it doesn't enable people to actualize. Couple rapid fire questions on the way out.
Okay.
All right. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
I think family and love. I'm a very sentimental and romantic person, so sorry.
What is it about love and family?
I think it's because don't let me started. Sorry. Actually, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna edit this out or not, but me doing WITI was actually very important for me as personally, because it's the first time since my dad passed. Sorry.
That's okay.
That I really started, doing these kinds of talks again. So it's kind of just a weird intersect. Oh God. Okay, please edit this out. but yeah, I mean, I think that that what makes it so wonderful to me, or why I answered that, is because I grew up with a lot of love, and I think that I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay.
Excuse me.
Take your time.
I think having this opportunity, or me being the way I am, turning out the way I did, which hopefully, Dad, you're proud of him, it's because I grew up with that, love. And I was lucky enough to marry my high school sweetheart, so I don't have any bad dating stories or broken heart stories either. So I mean, I feel like it's beautiful, maybe because I was fortunate enough to have been surrounded by it all my life, and
yeah, that's wow. That's right. That's right. Having family and love around us is one of the best ways for us to feel like the world is working, that we're a part of it.
Maybe that's why I'm still an abashed romantic and sentimental person, because I mean, this, I don't know if it's creepy, edit it out if it is, my dad's ashes.
That's not at all.
It just kind of,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize at all. These are the real raw moments that are really important to share. The moments of being okay with being vulnerable, the moments okay with crying. We've done them before on the show. Even I have a lot, and I think it's really, really important. It's the realness, Do you think that we're alone in the cosmos?
Well, no. I'm sorry. I mean, controversial or not, I believe in life outside our planet. I do.
Do you think that we're in a simulation?
I wouldn't rule it out.
You would rule it out, yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel that I choose my reality. That's my reality. So would it affect me so much if, let's say, I was like Neo and then I realized, oh, you've been in the Matrix the whole time? It's not a great answer, and it probably, maybe you did it, but I do wonder. I don't know if I have the answer, but I do wonder if I ever did realize that, hey, I'm in a simulation, would I want to end it? Because me, selfishly, I mean, I like what I have in the simulation, selfishly.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's a pretty good simulation.
Right. So I want to be honest. You said it raw, real honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to, get unplugged, but I'm not saying I would either. I mean, it's something I would seriously think about.
Thank you for teaching us so much today, Mica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Sorry.
for joining us.
Make me look good. Just kidding.
Thank you for coming onto the show.
You, Alan. And I apologize for...
No, you're good. You're good. You taught us a lot. We have... very ignorant about software development and how we even got to in deployment, how we even got to where we are today. And that is typically what ends up happening with the next generations that come, is they're just given the iPad and they just start swiping on it and they don't even know how it works. And so to know how we actually got here and the tools that are used today in order to, and the processes that are used today in order to make the software deployment actually happen quickly and efficiently is so important. That was a great learning experience for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys had a good time tuning in, please give us a comment below with your thoughts. We will have links in the bio as well. Subscribe, give us a like on the video, share the video content. Don't just consume this, go create with it as well. Go and make something with it, video, blog post, etc. Also, join us on Patreon, help us out, help us continue bringing the equipment out to really cool conferences and doing great interviews with smart people. So thank you very much for tuning in, and peace out from WITI. Thank you.